Tiny Shiny, for joining us.
Zoe, by the way.
That was a fun game. Yeah, Zoe.
Thanks. Zoe.
It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. Okay, so this is a really obviously this series. You look at these scores and it's like, okay, well, what's going on here, right? 0-6, 1-5. RAD Esports currently, Johnny, they have the 6th slot, right, at 1-5. Amplify, even though they haven't won a game, right? They're 0-6 with a -14, right? So you start to do some of the math, right? You get like a 3-0 here. Like you can actually, like, there's like a path where they make this really interesting with this bottom 3.
Wait, you're actually making the case here that Amplify, with a dominant win here over RAD, they could knock out RAD here from...
Turn their tides.
Wow. I mean, that could definitely be a thing. I mean, Amplify could play spoiler here because it is between Amplify, Shikigami, and RAD Esports about who will get relegated. And Amplify, you know, they are pretty set in their 8th spot there. But Shikigami, they got a game against SSG coming up as well. You know, they're 1-5, so they're hoping for a RAD loss here.
Yeah, I mean, against SSG, that is, especially when SSG, they have to keep pace with all those other teams. Not a great scenario to be in. Yeah, so this is going to be the RAD Esports map pick. They will also ban Ramatra here off the start. Amplify gets rid of Sim, so this allows Phone for her to play the Sombra, and then Winter to play the Sojourn that they've been so good at.
Yeah, they've been so good at this. This is their bread and butter, really, and we can see what they can do with it here. I think Winter has been a kind of standout player here for Amplify, and so if you can kind of rely on Winter to get some early picks here on the Sojourn, that would be a great start for Amplify to get things going. But I'm really looking at this composition from RAD. You got the Genji, you got the D.Va in the mix here. It's going to make things difficult for Winter.
In North America, we have some awesome Sojourn battles. I mean, Chronic also very good on the Sojourn, so... Lands a shot onto Phone there. She gets extremely weak, but gets healed back up as it looks like RAD here, Johnny, they're going to try and take this point first, but it looks like Amplify is more worried about taking space over on the bridge.
Yeah, and you kind of have to work with this Sombra, right? Because that is going to be your hero that obviously can navigate around the off angles, set things up. But oh wow, Painkiller takes a lot of damage. Actually get D-Mech there as well. And now if you're Amplify, you're just like, great, we'll just sit back, we'll do our thing, we'll clean up, we'll get a pick of the king here as well. And this should be them just pressuring the point now with nothing to really stop them.
Honestly, for both of these teams throughout, that's actually a nice, that's a railgun and then the disruptor shot after. The thing for both these teams, Johnny, through the first few weeks here, obviously, in the final week, it's really been, they've had difficult keeping their tanks alive under pressure, like whether it's Gap or Painkiller on the opposite side. We'll see if one of those teams can kind of come out on the positive end of that today. It'll be Z's using the Kitsune Rush over on the bridge. It's going to give RAD Esports all of this space, and the Amplify is going to back up. They're going to kite it, but they're going to be able to come back in with a Kitsune Rush of their own as Solos does end up building up that Kiri ultimate. Ewan as well, building up towards that beat. So now we're going to have a Kitsune Rush going the other way here as it'll be Amplify sending Gap across the bridge. Arisa just kind of taking this space, occupying it. See if you can take the objective. That was actually a hack there onto King on the low ground, so very careful on the Soldier. Nice spear there, connected. Not able to finish it off. It'll be going on in Terror Surge. So, that is filthy stuff. That is a 3K there from Gap. I mean, that is massive. That was also a really nice Suzu thrown in there from Solos, and I don't know if you caught it, being able to keep Gap up.
Yeah, I mean, that was beautiful, waiting out the Suzu as well from Zed and gets a triple Terra Surge. I mean, they really had point control, and you're looking at RAD Esports, they had that Sunbarrier available. Maybe they were going to go for the touch and re-engage there, but it's a well-timed Terra Surge from Gap that really puts a stop into things, and now in a good position with the EMP coming out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to walk right into this EMP from Phone. She drops it, they get rid of the Lucio, but that might be enough, Johnny, because the blade pulled out by King, you have Ewan who ends up using the sound barrier, so just trading out with that Lucio, right? Lep would have had the sound barrier potentially to use there to push on through the show. Now they have it for this fight, right? But it's gonna gain Amplify another 15-20% at least on the objective.
This is when Amplify are their most dangerous, when they haven't won their map yet. You can see just how much pressure putting onto RAD. Soundbarrier comes out from Lep here, Chronic activates the overclock, and now you take some positioning onto the point. Gets a pick onto Phone there, but it's a re-engage from RAD Esports. Kitsune Rush drop from either side here, and Amplify, they're just gonna keep building here as the control point keeps ticking.
Yeah, and you're able to keep Gap alive on the point. He's actually able to play from a little bit of an off angle, so just dodging a lot of the damage coming on down. Winter takes out Lep, so that's the Lucio out of the mix, and Rad finally able to take it, where Amplify, they back out just a little bit. Oh, that is a sick shot there from Chronic. Able to connect with Fona. She's across the map, but returned by Winter, so she connects with Chronic, and now an opportunity for Amplify to move in behind their Sojourn, take the point.
Yeah, it's going to be an aggressive push from Painkiller here. Fortify activated, so you're still...
I think he was looking for a Terror Surge.
Was looking for a Terror Surge indeed. Comes out there, tries to stabilize the point, but Winter finds another pick on the set as well. These Sojourns have just been so clutch for either team.
And you see Bone, she gets a hack on a Painkiller. Painkiller also hit with a spear. There's a boop here from Lep off the side. King here as well. They're trying to keep this one going as King will now cycle onto the point next as Winter hitting level 3 already. King, though, does take out Foam. Can you keep this going here if you're RAD Esports?
So hard.
It's gonna be King that gets on, gets a touch, but you do have your tank back in the fight.
Oh, Winter.
Winter is
just sitting here. Just sitting here as a shooting range practice, just finding these picks, and Amplify are gonna close things out. That's a great start for the team who are 0-6 in the series.
Yeah, but still, the bottom of NA has been so poor that even at 0-6 here, you're still kind of you can get interesting here, especially when you start to get in a head-to-head map differential. These teams not separated by that much, which is wild to say, as that is Amplify taking round number 1. They looked really good. I mean, they've had windows of opportunities here, Johnny. I mean, they've won maps against pretty good teams, right?
Yeah.
I know they take a map off of Timeless, take a map off of SSG, and they take a map off of Avidity, right? So taking a map off of 3 teams that are going to be in our playoffs, right? They also take a map off of Shikigami. They end up losing that series, but still an opportunity here potentially. So Painkiller on the Diva here off the rip. And then it'll be Gap on the Orisa. So this is pretty similar to what we saw early on. I mean, Phone, she does not want to go to relegation. If there's any possibility they can avoid that by beating RAD Esports, I mean, that is something that she wants to get out of, because she's popping off here at the start of the series.
Yeah, just look at the amount of pressure they're putting on RAD here. Finds an early pick onto Chronic, and now just trying to find some additional pick here to cap the point out. Amplify are looking so solid. Positioning is pretty good right now. They get the cap, but Solosan dust goes down, and you lose that much healing. Now the question is, like, how do you sustain in this fight?
Yeah, Solosan just kind of like out in no man's land, so to speak, is that Gap actually going with the barrier on the Orisa, so gonna forego the spear spin, gonna go with that barrier, pretty similar to what we just saw Infected do at the end of Havana. Does not matter though. I mean, you lose Solosan, that's most your healing there for Amplify, and RAD Esports, even though they give up 20%, able to flip it quite fast. So you also see with Painkiller, right? You see he has a little bit of that shield running that defense matrix perk to eat up some of that damage.
Yeah, I'm loving that perk as well. You get some extra shield, but then 25% of your defense matrix, that goes into your shield and regenerates health for you. That's just going to be so good in the neutral. As Amplify, they're trying to take some off-angle positioning here. Winter and Ewan, they're working together. Boop comes in from Lep, but stays alive using the slide here as well. And now they're pushing the point with this Orisa barrier. Now RAD, it's on them to really dislodge them and try to get a pick, and King does so onto Winter.
Yeah, they're having troubles tracking King down there, as King is able to deal with Winter and Ewan. And even though that Gap is really difficult to move on the point, right? We see when Gap puts down that Orisa shield, moves on into the corners, has that Fortify to work with as well. Really difficult to take out. The DPS players, specifically King here for RAD Esports, able to just find whether it be a support or the Sojourn on their own, pick up the kill.
Yeah, I think for Amplify, it's so hard to stay alive about all these different heroes working around your team, right? Because you have an Orisa, but you only have this shield to kind of like plop down, and then you have a Diva working the vertical game around you. You have King now working the Genji as well, and Phone has to do her best to like really help out, right? We have the Terra Search here, aggressive dive from King, takes a lot of damage, forced to dash out of there as Amplify does stay alive and re-engage with the Kitsune Rush.
He tries to catch a few players with the Terror Surge there, does Gap, but nobody connected to Susan to get everybody out alive, as Ewan getting so close to the sound barrier, not going to be able to use it. That is a King taking him out with a deflect headshot, so you lose that big ultimate that could have kept this one going. It's going to be an overclock for Winter. They get right in her face, just trying to eliminate the Sojourn from making any type of impact with this key ultimate is Ewan's going to get back in the fight. You're going to be able to get a touch here for Amplify. You also have this EMP to work with. What can Phone find? She's lurking on the high ground. That's going to be the sound barrier for Ewan. It's going to be the Kitsune Rush and the EMP coming down, but they deal with Winter.
Yeah, EMP came out, but it only hit the one onto Zed, and meanwhile, Chronic is working it in the backline with the overclock going as well. I mean, Chronic has been such a standout player for RAD Esports, and you see there their proactiveness of not actually sitting back, maybe expecting the EMP even and saying, I don't want to play with my backline, instead I'm going to go for this push around the team, and then you strike into the backline of Amplify. So well played there by RAD. You know, with Amplify, I think it's been a blessing and a curse that they know who they are. They play this Sombra style, right? But it does set them back on some rounds where the Sombra is not getting the same amount of value as like a Genji would, for example, right? And I think that was a great example of RAD really excelling with their composition against Amplify.
Yeah, I think Amplify as well. Just a pretty poor round. I don't think that the comp had a lot of great answers, but this will be Maga coming on in. So
here we go.
The answer to the Diva potentially is the Maga here for Amplify. So he is just so difficult to dislodge from these positions. No perks, obviously, just yet. The first time we're seeing the Maga here for Gap's going to have to build up to those here in the final round.
Going to get them quickly, though, given that you get more XP if you kill higher leveled players. So most of the players on RAD, you know, they're going to be level 3 already, so Gap's going to level up quite quickly. You can get some of those, you know, the 2 hearts, for example. You get more objective pressure and some healing per second as well. Just doing some poking for now, though. I think you're quite happy sitting back here with Gap being this presence. RAD actually pushing up quite a bit here. Maybe a cardiac overdrive here from Gap going to be activated. And now with this healing, what can you do with this power spike?
Yeah, they put down a lot of damage on the Painkiller, so forcing that Diva off of the point. Chronic also taking a shot there from Winter is... I think if you're Amplify, you're trying to get this Diva to come in and commit, especially with that Genji, and then maybe you can kind of take advantage of a hack plus a Maga stomp and then the cardiac overdrive. Take advantage of it that way as the hack's still coming through here from Phone on the Painkiller off from the side. That's going to be the Zizo already with a Kitsune Rush. You're going to be able to use this for RAD Esports right off the rip, and Amplify doesn't have anything, and they just kind of get ran over, so that early Kitsune Rush definitely pays off.
Absolutely, it's both teams accepting that we're just going to build our support ultimates, not quite willing to engage in the neutral, but RAD Esports, they get their Kitsune Rush first, and with that advantage, they're going to push it and end up cleaning up and get the first fight won here on the 3rd point of this control round. So now Amplify, though, they have support ultimates of their own. If I'm RAD, I kind of want to force a bad usage of this Kitsune Rush if I can. Maybe force Solo Sen to use the Kitsune Rush in a spot where you're not getting the most value out of it.
But how do they get it out?
Well, they're gonna push in. Here comes the Kitsune Rush. Now we have a Sun Barrier, and you're not activating it, so this is a great hold by Lep, actually.
Yeah, they just completely disengage. They just run. They don't even care. And, you know, you're still going to be able to contest this, right? That's going to be an EMP from Phone. The sound barrier in response, but doesn't connect with Z, so you're going to end up losing your Kiri. King has to go huge with this Blade, but Ewan's got a sound barrier in response. Even though King just gets 1, it's probably going to be enough. Gap on an exit gets Chronic, but the Maga will eventually fall, and just like that, above 50% on the board for RAD Esports.
Oh, that's just brutal for Amplify, because you make such a big commitment, activating both the EMP, the sound barrier, and the Kitsune Rush, and you can't win the fight. So it's going to be quite equal when it comes to the ultimate back here. RAD Esports, of course, they have the overclock, but Winter is coming up to theirs as well. You have this cage fight, so wondering maybe if you're Gap here, like, can you find a situation to drop this cage fight and get a man advantage early on? That has to be kind of like your big bet here. Approaching arguably the final fight here of Control.
Yeah, they're gonna walk right around the corner and just use the cage onto the Diva, and they actually get a DMAC. It's actually a hack as well, but Chronic coming around the corner is going to connect with 2 with the overclock. It does not matter. Even though you get that Diva D-Mech, it's going to be the self-destruct used by Painkiller, getting a new mech right back. Chronic, though, they did not account for the Sojourn coming around the corner with the overclock, connecting with 3. Winter using it, coming out of the spawn, does not make a difference, though. So RAD Esports with a dominant last 2 rounds there over Amplify.
Yeah, and I think that really displays about what Amplify does good, but also what happens when you can't match the Tracer or the Genji playing these off angles, right? Because Amplify, they have their Sombra, they're working with the cage fight, they're getting the hacks onto Diva, but that means Chronic can instead go for the big flank with the overclock and gets plenty of picks. And we saw this proactiveness from Chronic throughout the entire map, really. Willing to go for these big flanks and get picks in the backline. That's just going to be the end of Amplify, the way they're playing this composition.
And we've seen Phone play different things other than the Sombra. We've seen her play like the Torb and other types of heroes, and she's looked really good on it. So they're not exactly like forced to just play the Sombra. It's just kind of like what they decide to do and maybe feel like it's the best chance for them to do on a lot of these maps. But I know Amplify off to a really good start. I mean, that 3K from Gap was pretty crazy. Winter going huge, but then, dude, the last 2 rounds just were not close.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because of, you know, the way the maps are designed as well. Oh, here you go. King with a bit of a deflect there. Manages to get out alive here. But this is a tough round as well when you're kind of playing the Mauga and the Sombra, right? Because it is such an open map there on Shrine. Taking a look at the stats here, pretty even across the board, but Amplify was just way more that's the way that those last 2 rounds went.
I'd love to know as well how many of those RAD Esports deaths actually happen in the first round, right?
Yeah.
Get an idea of like kind of what the rest of the map looked like, because it didn't look like there were many coming after map number 1. So now if you're Amplify, what do you decide to do here, right? No, obviously, basically just the entire pool is completely open to you. We've seen them go with Suravasa a lot.
Yeah.
So potentially Suravasa picks, Suravasa Esperanza is 2 picks for them that we see quite often.
Yeah, and I think you have to find a map here that kind of works with the Mauga, but, you know, it could get potentially banned here as well. So we'll kind of see what RAD has in store. I think historically RAD, they have enjoyed playing these brawl compositions, right? But knowing what Gap does as well, playing the Orisa, playing the Mauga, you kind of want to like work around that. So I think usually when teams play Amplify, they're going to ban the Mauga. They're going to ban the Sombra, because these are kind of like the specialist heroes you're seeing out of Amplify. Yeah. And this is another opportunity to do that. So if we're going to a Suravasa, perhaps, which has been a go-to pick, one of those heroes are likely to get banned, I feel like.
It'll be Havana here for Amplify. So they go with an escort map to play. We've seen them actually run this as well in the past. So we've seen Phone, she'll pick up like a May or something along those lines.
Venture.
To play Venture as well, another option for them. So we'll see what they decide to go with here on Havana. I think if you are RAD though, like you could ban out the Sombra if you're really worried about it. I think like even like a Sojourn ban, even though you take it out of Chronic's hands, we've seen Winter not really go to like the Ashe as much, really just kind of playing that Sojourn. So maybe have Winter get forced over to like on a Torb or something along those lines, and you feel a lot better. So some different things that I think that RAD Esports can do that can make it pretty difficult for Amplify.
Yeah, I do think though that you kind of want to leave the Sojourn open, because if you know that Gap's going to play so much Mauga, then the Sojourn is especially good against that Mauga pick, right? So that could be quite useful. But
we got a sub.
What happens with the hero bounce? We got a sub actually. Crazy Cat comes in from Solo Center. We mostly been seeing Crazy Cat, I feel like, so this makes sense.
Yeah, we've seen Crazy Cat a lot on the escort maps like Dorado. When you see it get picked against Amplify, or Amplify decides to pick it, they end up bringing in Crazy Cat. So not out of the realm here in terms of subs. We see this pretty often for them, especially as we move deeper into series. So Crazy Cat comes in for solos in. We'll get those bans here in just a little bit, and we'll be able to hop right into this one. But I wonder if we see maybe even like some of the Zen from these teams. Okay, so Amplify gets rid of the Zen. So they say goodbye to Zen right off the rip. So that takes the Zen off the table. And then RAD, they get rid of the Sombra. So they say, hey, Phone, play something else, right? That's kind of what they're going for here.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, we have actually seen Amplify play Havana with Sombra banned, and in that case, it's been Phone bringing out the Venture in response, not being able to play their mainstay kind of hero here. And I do feel like Havana has also been another comfort map for Amplify. I'm going to take a wild stab here, Matt, which is probably not something you should do during the cast. Yep. But I'm pretty sure when I
take a wild stab at any point. You should. Well,
if you're okay, sure, but no. Amplify. I'm just moving away from this. I'm just progressing. I want to get away from it.
Don't wildly stab.
But Amplify, I'm pretty sure they picked Havana in the qualifiers when they took down Supernova as well, which was the big upset. That meant that Amplify qualified in the first place, because if you think, Supernova, that was that stacked roster, Fluffy Dreamland from last year. So big upset from Amplify to take them out in the qualifiers, which earned them their spot here in stage 1, right? And one of those maps been Havana, I'm pretty sure. So that is Don't double check that. But that has been like, this has been a go-to map for them, I feel like, for the past month or so. So obviously they feel quite comfortable on this map, knowing full well that the Sombra might get banned. Phone can come in clutch here playing the Venture instead, or any other hero. We'll see what they bring out.
Yeah, Havana seems to be a bit of a go-to there for Amplify. Having a little bit of difficulty getting into this one, but we will in just a second. But while we're waiting, let's take a look at that Season 15 trailer, all the awesome stuff going on in game right now. Welcome back, everybody, to the OWCS North America, our second to last day. It's Mr. X here with Reinforce.
What do you say that was a surprise?
I mean,
come on, man.
Yeah. Well, what? I think the people would just be surprised, right? They're used to hearing me with a fellow Australian, and you know, I'm the only one here on the show today. So, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a shock. But Amplify, RAD Esports, 1-0 here in favor of RAD, as this is Amplify's map selection. It'll be RAD on defense. I imagine a close hold here.
It's been a fan favorite.
Yes.
We're nodding to each other.
Yes.
We're using
non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication here. They're working on it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Painkiller is actually not going to go for the forward hold with the rest of RAD, actually. So they're going to let the Amplify work up to it. So Phone actually going over to the Torbjorn here. Like we mentioned earlier, Sombra being banned. Obviously, Phone's go-to hero here. So hopes for the Torb early on.
Pretty sweet angle here from Chronic. It'll be the Widowmaker on defense instead of a Sojourn for RAD. So a little bit of better, longer sight lines here than the Sojourn, but you have to be really careful, right? If RAD can kind of know if Amplify can get close and close the gap to that Widowmaker.
Yeah, and there's a lot of poke as well, right? Like there's the Visa spam that, you know, doesn't have any fall off range, and so a lot of this poke could be quite lethal for the Widowmaker, annoying to deal with. Painkiller is going to find an early pick on the Phone, but you know, it's not the biggest pick in the world. Amplify holding strong for now, unless RAD really wants to push more.
The Torb dropping there off the start, right? I mean, it is a lot of extra damage that comes off the table when just the nuisance and the annoyance of the turret. Phone, she will swap over to Mei. So we've actually seen her go to Mei on the second stage of this map quite often. Seems to be a pretty nice comfort pick for Phone, as she'll bring it out a little bit early here in this map.
Yeah, and just getting some of those cooldowns used by Painkiller, that's going to be your win condition, but King with an early pick onto Winter. This really like just sets Amplify back before they're really even able to play with their win condition, right? Forced back here, King goes aggressive early, and this is where RAD starts leveling up. They get their first minor perk, as well as coming close to some of these ultimates. You already have Race up on either side here, and a Dragon Blade coming up for King as well. So Amplify struggling early on here, and you know, what is their win condition here? They have to get some value with these big ultimates.
I think the thing for Amplify is that the UFC actually see
very early
for Z's. Yeah, used like really early. That may have been a misclick because that was just used in the middle of the street there. But Winter, she's like been the star player, I would say, for Amplify. And you can see that like she's not able to get anything going here against the Widowmaker, right? Still sitting at 56% towards an overclock. Just been given no space to work with here.
Yeah, it's hard because, you know, you lose the hit scan duel. Like, Chronic obviously has these long sightlines, right? And so that's something you always have to be wary of. So then you kind of think, well, we want to win the frontline battle. We want to win this Orisa head-to-head, right? But there's so many cooldowns to get out. You need to get out both the Javelin Spin and the Fortify. There's double speed with both the Lucio and the Juno up on either side. So there is so much work that Amplify have to do to get a fight going here in the first place. The Orbital Ray is going to be activated, and King actually gets caught. It's a beautiful predictive wall by Phone that prevents King from getting out.
Yeah, King has been a nuisance for Amplify, specifically our backline, really the entire series on the Genji. Is I wonder if you can stay alive here as Chronic takes a railgun shot there from Winter. Stay alive long enough and maybe come back and fight this. I thought actually the Fortify was going to allow Painkiller to get out, but not going to happen. So you get rid of that Orisa. This may end up preventing RAD from getting a touch.
Yeah, it was great play there by Phone. Now, they are lurking here, RAD. Here comes the Genji. Dragon Blade gets popped here. Soundberry maybe from left. It is a little bit late. Zed already dropped to the Terra Surge there. And now, RAD, they're hoping to get some picks here. It's a 4 versus 4 with Painkiller getting back into the fight. Overclock gets popped by Winter here. Looking to get any of these picks, but it's Phone who cleans up King. And there we go. It's going to be Amplify closing out this first point, after holding on strong here with some of these ultimates from RAD.
Yeah, RAD does a nice job on defense. They hold for an extended period of time, but not able to make it work here towards the end. I imagine we see Chronic swap the Widow. Not great in this part of the map. Maybe you end up trying to match the Sojourn in a way, but this is also where the Orisas become even stronger, right? We saw Infected go to the Orisa at this part of the map. Painkiller with that Terror Surge. No support ultimates on the other side. Could be pretty filthy, but Chronic actually will continue to play the Widow, Johnny. I mean, this is a really dangerous spot to play the Widow in.
Yeah, and they're really pushing it here for the positioning as well. Terror Surge is huge from Painkiller. They just got in there. No cooldowns available for Amplify, and that is going to be that.
Yeah, and you see, when the Terror Surge comes down, Z's also like launches the judo kind of like missiles in, and the damage going down on everybody. Just a little bit of hits there. Puts the finishing touches on a bunch of people. This is going to be a Orisa shield, so that's going to be the shield major perk taken by Painkiller, giving a little protection to Chronic in an off angle. So now it's going to be Amplify using a spear spin just to get out.
Yeah, comes Orbital Ray.
Yeah, Orbital Ray use here early on here from RAD. So this time, though, they get a good use of it, right? You think about the last time they used Orbital Ray, it was pretty sad. They just kind of used it just sitting around the corner, got nothing. I mean, it was a really sad Ray. I mean, there's nothing that went on with it. So
yeah,
this time
Ray goes unused. It's pretty sad.
This time it was a happy Ray, a good
happy Ray
there.
Happy Ray. Look at these off angles, like they're in the spawn.
I mean,
this is just brutal, because again, like with Amplify's composition, there is nothing to contest the Widow here, and so you kind of have to refocus your attention elsewhere, but at this point it can't be ignored. Amplify
Dude,
has
this
to do something
Orisa
about
shield is so troll as well. You get it like in the face here of Chronic. There's nothing you could really even do.
Good luck. Oh my.
It is a bloodbath over there in the choke. I mean, that's Phone's Blizzard thrown in. They actually end up using Crazy Cat's Orbital Ray, and they just walk right into a Terror Surge Blade. I mean, that is just... how do you even challenge Chronic in that off angle? Chronic with... he's got an Infrasight again.
Yeah, and now you swap away from the Mei, so you don't have the Mei wall to block for the rest of your team. The Kiriko is going to be able to TP when you get out of this area, but, I mean, Winter just goes down. Okay, well, guys, I think there's a Widowmaker on your side.
Yeah.
Not sure, though.
The Widow looks to be quite effective. 10 seconds on the clock. You do have sound barrier.
Get the touch.
Sound barrier out of the spawn is they do get a touch. They're trying to get through the TP. All right, they finally make it. So they get out of the spawn. But what good is it, though? Chronic ends up taking out Phone. She uses the TP just to get by. As, Amplify, they do get that first point, Johnny, but not much after that. The spawn kill is on from Chronic and Co. It's the Widowmaker. I was like, man, I think you're going to be able to use it here in the second part of the map. You most certainly can. It's just you kind of push up and you use it. And then now, though, off the spawn, Amplify does get a fight win. So they will continue to move this payload here. Finally, at the end of things, RAD Esports just kind of crumbles. But RAD is going to be able to come back, though, with the Orbital Ray and Sound Barrier. I mean, this is a sick combination. You're still on this Widow, too, which is wild to me.
Wild to you, yeah. And, I mean, the Widowmaker is trying to get some shots in here, but Winter does contest for a little bit. Sound Barrier comes in, Orbital Ray comes in here, and this is just going to be RAD, just running them over with the support ultimates. It was just too much, Matt. There was just too many strong ultimates there for Amplify to really deal with, and nothing they really had going except for that overclock. So Amplify put to a stall here on the second point after some impressive Widowmaker play by Chronic and some decent shield usage by Painkiller on the Orisa.
Yeah, that was some sick shield usage there by Painkiller on D. I mean, Amplify, I guess the positive is they get the payload out from the doorway and they get it around the corner. The issue is they just had to use absolutely everything to be able to do it. And it feels like we were, watching Chronic just pick them up out of the spawn for 2+ minutes on the Widow. There was nothing they could do to challenge the Widowmaker of RAD Esports. I mean, just a really devastating scenario for Amplify to be in.
Yeah, and you're thinking that gap, sitting on the Orisa, maybe you want to swap that pick up and try to go over to like a Sigma. Like that shield could have maybe been useful for poking the Widow and making sure they don't just get free shots out. But Gap was sitting on that Terra Surge as well, so you don't want to swap away from the Terra Surge. Winter obviously didn't want to take the Widowmaker duel as well. Again, like there's no Sombra available for Phone to kind of like work the angles with the transfer.
They don't really play Genji either, right?
Yeah,
like you could have played like Genji Lucio. You could have played Genji Lucio and like tried to like track it down, because even if you got near Chronic, Lep was right there, right next to him the entire time. So Lep was able to just kind of like displace people if they did get close. Speaking of close, it'll be Amplify playing close right outside the RAD Esports spawn door. It'll be Phone. She will be on the Symmetra here.
Here.
Yeah, we'll see. What do you love about the Zarya here?
Well, I love the Zarya because you know that they're going to hold close with the Orisa. So of course you have naturally a great way to deal with this Orisa, right? Working through the fortified with the javelin spin. And I mean, there's some poking going on here. I mean, we're trading both ways. This is valuable time lost for RAD, I guess.
Yeah, losing the Sojourn off the start seems like it would be pretty large, but it doesn't seem to matter here at the moment. I mean, kills just being traded by both teams. As Phone, she's using the TP, getting up to the high ground. They're just trying to keep Painkiller up, right? Painkiller gets a lot of charge and then just comes flying out of the spawn. I mean, they had like 2 opportunities to deal with Painkiller. It makes it back to the spawn, able to get some healing and keep all that energy. They absolutely needed to get rid of that Zarya, especially with this much charge.
Yeah, and maybe you're feeling confident as well that Gap is gonna stick on this Orisa, so now you're just playing this like pretty fully charged Zarya into an Orisa as well. You got the Torb as well, which is going to be a lot of damage that feeds these Zarya shields as well. This is RAD feeling very comfortable in their compositional matchup against Amplify, I feel like.
Amplify still has nothing to challenge his Widow, right? I mean, Torb Sim is not going to put much pressure here on Chronic. The TP, though, of getting Gap onto top of Chronic will, but that's just going to be a Zarya bubble, and they just kind of like escort the Widow out of the way, and now Chronic is going to have free reign to just tear down the side of Amplify. It's like the tides of turn, right? Where now Amplify is kind of like in the street here. They're almost like playing from the offensive side on D's. The kind of map is flipped, but this is not the spot you want to be in against the Widow.
Yeah, but it did stall the cart though for a little bit. So this is your second contest out of 3, and you're already dropped 2 minutes here for RAD. So you get to re-engage here one more time on this point. But I mean, you got a Graviton Surge to deal with. There's a Dragon Blade, Orbital Array.
I thought you were trying to sell me on Amplify getting a hold there, and I was like, I am not buying. As you have the insight here, you're going to know exactly where they're coming from.
Crazy game. You never know, man.
Potentially. Grab blade option available here. King goes in. That'll be just a dash on through. That's actually going to be a Terror Surge. And they just, I mean, that's so difficult for Crazy Cat to fight from, right? I mean, a Genji Lucio charging you down as Juno, no support there as well, because Ewan has to go out onto the point. They kind of use that speed to get out on the objective. And just like that, Johnny, it's RAD Esports winning that fight. All they use, Orbital Ray Blade. You have a grab, Sound Barrier in response. Chronic getting set up in a position to potentially catch a player off guard here. 3:40 on the clock. And then Amplify's not even going to get a fight like at the choke, right at the first doorway. The cart's going to make a pretty decent amount of progress.
Yeah, but now at least you have the Symmetra teleporter. You can put some pressure on.
Yeah, but they're all on the opposite side from Gap. Look at where Gap's playing. Like, how are they supposed to keep Gap up?
Well, it's difficult. Here's the sound barrier. No, Ewan goes down.
Yeah.
Have it on Surge anyway. You use both support ultimates, and now you have to find something, but RAD are just staying alive throughout all of this.
Sound barrier.
Struggling to get anything going at this point.
They disengage their RAD Esports. They come back. They use their own beat, and they push on forward after the beat used by Ewan inside of the grab. So another fight win here for RAD Esports. Painkiller and Co gonna push up towards the door, try and block players coming on. Now it is Winter does have that Molten Core, potentially an option here. Just kind of throw it on the carpet. Look at this, I mean, Gap's taking down. There is no chance of survival there, as it's gonna be Chronic. 2 headshots, 2 kills.
Stop.
That should be enough here. The Molten Core thrown out, but it does not matter. RAD Esports will take map number 2.
Oh my goodness. I mean, Chronic's been good this stage, but that was just brutal. There was nothing stopping Chronic on the Widowmaker that map.
No, the spawn kill was filthy. I mean, just nasty work there from Chronic and Co. And then also RAD Esports, got to give it up to them. They played it quite well, right? Sound Barrier comes in, they're able to disengage, come back, use their own beat. You could see it though. When everybody TP'd out of the spawn and Gap is on the other side of the high ground, you're like, well, that's not where you're supposed to be potentially. And you could see Critical just heal right away. King's just pressuring him down, the Genji one-on-one. And then, I mean, what is poor Gap supposed to do, right? Coming out of the choke, just get double dinked with a headshot. I mean,
you have a Zarya to worry about, and then there's a Widowmaker shooting you as well.
Yeah.
That's just tough.
So, I mean, that's also Amplify's map pick. We'll take a look at some of the highlights as RAD Esports put together a pretty good map.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's been really impressive from RAD so far. Like I said, they're just so confident into this kind of matchup, right? And, you know, Phone as well wasn't really able to get any kind of value, whether it was the May, you know, here on second point as well. So that is just when you render two players so ineffective, not getting any value on their picks, whether it's Gap on the Orisa or Phone on their hero choices as well. I mean, you're just going to be at a natural disadvantage there. So really well played by RAD. They feel very confident in this series, the way they've prepared so far for Amplify and what they usually bring to a series, given their pretty unconventional style.
Amplify can play a little bit odd at times, right? I think, though, RAD Esports just has a really good read on them at the moment. And you see that reflected in terms of our map 2 stats. Just...
one-sided.
Yeah, I mean, it was a drubbing, like where we usually see Amplify play pretty close. I think, though, you see clearly like the holes in Amplify's game, right? Like, you're not really having like a Genji or anything to kind of play in that type of situation where you've seen King play Genji a lot. Winter's awesome on the Sojourn. For whatever reason, she doesn't want to take sometimes, like in the SSG match specifically, like she went away from the Sojourn against Seeker, and like you should just take the head-to-head. Like, she's that good, right? So potentially maybe some more hit scan heroes in the pool, as it'll be Suravasa. That'll be the pick from Amplify here. An opportunity for RAD Esports to close this one out 3-0. But you can see some of the holes for Amplify that, you know, you sure those up. You're looking at a few wins here.
Yeah, you are. I mean, this has been such a dominant series so far for RAD, and now you're going to Suravasa as well, where I do feel like, despite the fact that, you know, Amplify, they might get things going here, playing their usual style on a map they're quite comfortable with, I do feel like RAD, they've just had the answer so far in this series, and I don't think it's going to be any different here going into Suravasa as well. So we'll see kind of like what bands they work with so far here. You know, if you're RAD already, you banned Ramatra and you banned the Sombra, so maybe this is the map where you ban the Mauga if you'd like to as well, and force Gap again over to the Orisa. That could be another Zarya map where Painkiller can get going again. So because you haven't banned the Mauga already, I feel like you have like a leg up in this series already, where that is an advantage you could throw out given the hero bans at any time in the series.
Potentially a Mauga ban available here for RAD Esports. Could throw a little bit of a wrench of what Amplify wants to do, and then I'm curious what Amplify decides to go with. Do you maybe get rid of like a Lucio,
ban
maybe?
Zarya?
You get rid of...
You can't ban Zarya if they ban Mauga. So.
Yeah, if they ban Mauga, you can't ban Zarya. We do have a sub, so Zeb will come in for Painkiller. Does this tell you anything in terms of like the subs or the bans?
Well, Zeb, I mean, mostly known for, you know, Time of Citrus Nation last year, where, you know, we got to see quite a lot of that Orisa being utilized, right? So maybe that is something you'd like to play here as well, given the Painkiller goes out. We'll kind of see how this sub affects things, but there are more subs coming as well. Peace coming in for King, and Peace, I gotta say, you know, bring out the Genji.
Yeah. We saw King play the Genji. We're really good there on Havana, but also just the depth that RAD Esports has in terms of the lineup being showed off a little bit here, being able to bring in Peace and Zeb potentially in our final map of the series against Amplify. Don't know if we have a sub for Amplify just yet. Potentially, if it would be, it would just be like Solozen coming in for a Crazy Cat. So Amplify gets rid of the Orisa. So you talked about maybe like there would be kind of like a Mauga on the other side of things for RAD, but it's Amplify getting rid of the Orisa to start, and then Juno Gun. So a Juno ban here for RAD Esports, potentially looking at Kariko based comps.
Yeah, Kiriko-based compositions can still play the Lucio, of course, there. But, you know, I feel like most of the time we've seen Amplify play, actually, they've kind of favored, you know, the Lucio and the Kiriko kind of composition, right? And so I don't think they're super unhappy about this as the way things stand. So some interesting bans there, you know, the Orisa being banned. I do think that's quite interesting. You know, maybe you'll finally get that Mauga come out. Man,
you are just craving some Mauga action.
I am.
What's up with you?
Well, come on now. I mean, this is the one time we'd see some Mauga, right? So, you know, bring it out.
True.
This is what you do, Amplify.
So Mulga's got some interesting kind of like perk setups we could talk a little bit about. Potentially we see some Mulga, but the overrun reloading the 150 ammo while charging is like a little bit of a interesting one, maybe a little bit of a sleeper.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Dude, the 2 hearts though seems, I mean, dude, that 20 health per second is like not anything to scoff at.
Yeah, anytime you can get health per second, it's good. And so I think 20 health per second, you know, that's going to just assist you as you're fighting on these flashpoints, especially as we're heading into Suravasa, right? Where, you know, you fight on the point for 10, 15, 20 seconds. It's going to add up that health over time. So that's been a choice for many, where it does make sense with the objective.
What do you like for the major?
For the major one, I kind of just lean towards the overhealth one because frankly, it's just more sustain. You get stickier as a tank and it's kind of free, right? I feel like how often do you ignite or like overrun on multiple targets, right? Like maybe if you run through the front line to get into the back line, but I feel like more often than not, you kind of like have a target in front of you and you're just stomping that one person. And you have to think about the fact that if you're going to shoot this target after you've used your overrun, then you're probably putting them on fire anyway. And so it's really about putting additional targets on fire. And I feel like you seldom do that as Mulga. So I usually just go for the combat fuel instead, which grants you up to 100 overhealth when you activate your cardiac overdrive. And you know, that's what Mulga does best, sustain under the point. Bit of a power spike there, so might as well add some more health to it.
One tank we haven't seen a ton of in North America, at least since Perks, has been like Junker Queen. I actually really like a lot of her perks. I think
they're interesting.
I think some really interesting setup there with Junker Queen, where maybe a little bit of balance kind of gets her into a playable state at this level, but no, just kind of playing her in comp, just a ton of fun. The alligator chomping away, getting ready, kick this one off. So it'll be Gap running the Mulga. So you were like wondering if we were going to see a Mulga based composition.
What is Gap?
And Zeb on the other side going to be playing the Zarya.
Yeah, so playing the Zarya here, it's going to be quite interesting. Like we talked about throughout the day here, that Zarya is one of those strong picks now because the perks really help Zarya out, I feel like. And, you know, if we get to see some more Zarya, I'm curious to see if we get the major perk, you know, the energy lance that pierces enemies. That could be quite interesting on a pretty close, you know, brawly map such as Suravasa, right? But for now, it's going to be Amplify contesting this point. Gap drops quite low, but activates the cardiac overdrive. And Winter finds an early pick of the Zed. This is going to be something that Amplify can use to cap the point and now snowball this advantage.
Winter, even in a rough series, has still looked pretty good here for Amplifies. She finds one. That's enough to give them point control first. And I'm curious, would Zeb end up kind of building on the Zarya if we see the Zarya for an extended period of time? A lot of people at home just see the 30% max health in terms of grab, and they just kind of go towards that one where the ability to access some of the high ground is extremely good. They deal with the Mulga, and now you imagine RAD will be able to push up to the point.
Yeah, Gap takes a ton of damage there early on, and from there on out, it's just going to be RAD Esports pushing the momentum. No tank up for Amplify, nothing to really contest whatsoever, just get some final stall. They built 58%, which is nothing to scoff at here. You know, you win one fight, and suddenly you're getting very close to a final fight there.
They feel like that the Mulga is not good into the Zarya, potentially, right? Because Gap switches over and plays the Ram right now, so... potentially, look, I think Mulga is strong into a lot of these comps. I even think Mulga is pretty strong into the Zarya, but clearly it seems like Amplify doesn't believe so at the moment.
Well, I think Ramatra is such a great pick here as well. You know, the extra sustain there as well, and the Nemesis form to kind of go with it. You can get engaged with this Sombra. So Kitsune Rush going to be activated from Casey Cat. They get the point flip, which is crucial with this percentage building, and then a pick of the piece as well. This is now a tough spot for RAD to be in. They activate the Kitsune Rush. Maybe the sound barrier thrown here as well, but the EMP is waiting from phone.
Oh, but it's going to be Lep landing that sound barrier, so even though that EMP comes through, Lep with really good timing there on that beat. Ewan's going to use the sound barrier as well here for Amplify. Only connects with 3. It's a grab thrown in there for Zeb, and Zeb actually goes with Johnny that gravitational crush, so that's that 30% of enemy max health is damage over time while inside grab, so doesn't go with the ability to access some of the high ground with that self boops. Quite an interesting choice. I feel like we've seen a lot of just the Zaryas going with that self knockback, but at least in competitive, but you know, at home I see a lot of people gravitating towards that Graviton Surge one. Chronic over the dot, connects with 2 with an overclock, and just like that, it looks like RAD Esports gonna steal our first flashpoint.
Yeah, it's a beautiful push from RAD early on, around 80% they push out, and you know, this is something we see top teams do, is that when you get close, 80, 90%, you push out of the point, you make it hard for the enemy team to touch the point, and then you get picks early. So catching Amplify off guard, to the point, they're trying to touch the objective before the overtime kind of kicks in there. So beautifully done by RAD. You only invest the overclock as well. You don't really have an ultimates here, so Winter's going to pop the overclock early. It's a bubble Genji in your face, but you do stay alive, and now you can kind of get the max value out of this piece. Pops the Dragon Blade here, gets into the backline, and that's going to be Winter going down.
It was almost like he was booped. Right? It almost looked like, he looked like he got shot out of a cannon. Ewan's like, hey, don't come for me. Winter's back there, and just booped piece and back on towards the Sojourn. So Winter, she ends up using that overclock. It's really nice from RAD. It's like a deflect from Peace off the start, so not going to fire into the deflecting Genji. Then a bubble there from Zeb, just negating anything that you could have gotten there with that overclock. So Amplify behind Gap here, starting to make their way back towards the point. Gonna have Kitsune rushes on both sides. The Nemesis form of the Ramatra are gonna be really difficult inside of this Kitsune rush. It's Crazy Cat, as soon as the Kitsune rush goes down, Crazy Cat falls. So here comes Chronic on an off angle with Lep. Dude, it seems like every time Amplify ends up using like a support ultimate, two players are dead instantly. It just feels like they're not able to leave his phone. Phone gets her one on the exit here. It's Lep just surging for the Sombra. Oh, she's right there.
Oh, you get picked as well before the fight kicks off. It's a tough spot to be in. 5 versus 4, Graviton Surge used by Seb here as well, and this is going to be RAD.
Dude, that time
closing out the second point.
You see the max damage there with that grab, right? You see actually Gap ends up just kind of like dying to the ticking damage over time. As RAD Esports doing a speed run of Amplify right now. I mean, an opportunity to close this one out. Even worse for Amplify. I mean, look at how close the next flashpoint is. You're just going to move right onto it here for RAD Esports with a sound barrier. High ground is they're set up.
Invisible Sombras.
They couldn't be set up almost any better.
Yeah, now Phone has the CMP, and what can he kind of do with it, right? Didn't really get the full value out of the Kitsune rush there, and now, you know, with the backs against the wall, you have to start finding picks here. Phone finds a hack onto the Kiriko, but not able to really get anything else going there. So Seb has the positioning on the point, and this is where Amplify need to start going aggressive and start contesting the point. EMP comes out onto the Sombra, but with the virus.
Oh, and then the sound barrier comes in from Lap, and it's just really good. Connects with everybody. So you just kind of use Zeb as a bait there on the point. You bait it, Zeb. They go with a EMP trying to take out the Zarya on the opposing side, but it's a sound barrier in response. Everybody kind of like floods onto the point after that. This has just been all RAD Esports. Basically from our first point of Nepal. That was close there as Amplify takes it, but since then it's been a blowout. I mean, it feels like eons ago at this point.
You want the sound barrier? With 4 targets there, but who are you really going for here? Peace goes down.
Yeah, they get rid of Peace, right? And Peace got a blade. But how are they going to work their way back towards the point? I mean, this is going to be a Kitsune rush they're walking into. It's going to be overclock used here for Winter. Gaps using Annihilation. Kitsune rush used by Z's over the point, and that's going to allow the Zarya to go to work. Even with these ultimates, I mean, that's 2 ultimates used there by Amplify towards the end of the fight, and they're a player up, and you still end up losing it. And Johnny, just like that, we are at 90% on the objective. Zeb pushing up towards the spawn, as this is going to be a blade here for Peace, seeing what he can find on the point. Is Phone trying to make it out, but yeah, that is just it. That is just destruction there towards the end. RAD closes the door on Amplify stage 1.
Wow. Yep. The very last moments of Amplify there for stage 1 is unfortunately can't get that match win here in stage 1 for North America, but you know, there were some all right moments for Amplify. You know, they certainly took some few maps from the top teams, but I mean, this last match against RAD, it was a tough one. It really did feel like RAD had all the answers for what they do best here. Amplify.
You know, it's bad, Zoe, when you know, you can't even say they're good moments. They're just all right moments. Like, there's just moments that you just don't feel like horrible about.
Matt, you know, look, it has to be said that Amplify qualifying in the first place here for stage 1. It was
huge.
a big upset over Supernova. And so, you know, these are very tough matches for Amplify. They were red names coming into stage 1. They were like trying to do research, and it's like they don't have any history because they're so new to the scene, but they qualify. It's an amazing achievement for them, and they got the opportunity to play against some top teams here.
But the thing with Amplify, here's my argument.
Sorry, I just have to get my rant.
Here's my argument. I would love to know Zoe. I mean, well, I was going to say Zoe's opinion, but she's just going to disagree with me because it's better for content. But Amplify has played better teams like closer than this. Like, this is a series that like they should have like on paper been around in more, right? But they take maps off of like some of these other teams that are really good. And then, you know, here today didn't really perform, where I guess that's a little bit where I'm disappointed. Like, they had an opportunity.
I agree, actually. For the sake of bad content, I will agree with you.
There we go. There we go.
Sorry.
I reverse engineered a Zoe agreement.
Yeah, that's you're inside my head. That's really what it is. No, but I think it was odd, maybe is the word, or disappointed, or I don't know, to see them kind of running their heads into a wall, like they're sticking to that Sombra. But we talked about this, or you guys mentioned it several times already on map 1, right? Like, yeah, Phone is very good on Sombra, but you can't really make her work everywhere. Like, she's a niche pick, and Phone can play so many other things. Like, they don't need to play that composition in order to look good. They played other compositions against better teams and looked better. So there was no real reason to revert back to, if this is their comfort zone, I don't know, maybe they already gave up. More like, just get it over with.
That's what I
understand, though. I get it.
That's kind of how it feels.
I understand.
If this game was in like week 4, right? Or no, if it was like 2 weeks ago, right? Is the results of this series different? I think you could make an argument, maybe, like you're already just kind of like mental boomed. Like, I mean, RAD probably still wins, but it's probably closer. But like, you're probably already pretty boomed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, teams get figured out, and everyone knows what Amplify do at this point. I mean, it happens in all sports. Just look at Chelsea in the Premier League, Matt. Like, you know, they were riding high at the start of the season, and now it's all going downhill.
That fake football.
Fake football. You just called. Okay, that's a conversation I won't even go into. But I don't know. I feel like Amplify, you know, they should be happy that, you know, they qualify for stage 1, and it's been great to see some of these players make a name for themselves. I think Winter is specifically Winter has been really good for them throughout the stage, and so, you know, I wish them the best of luck. You know, they're in relegation now, and they have to play some of the teams from Face It Masters, but I'm looking forward to see more from Amplify. It's been a fun team to follow, given that they play this unconventional style. So that's just me ranting about Amplify. It's always fun.
It is. Another thing that is always fun are, of course, post-match interviews, and we got one ready for you as well. We should have Chronic from RAD joining us for a quick chat. Can you hear us? It's voice only.
I can. Hello.
Hello.
Perfect.
Hello,
Hi, welcome to the show, Chronic. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Let's talk about this one. It ended up being a more one-sided affair. Did you hope for a closer match? Did you expect a closer match going up against them?
I think Amplify, we honestly expected to like 3-0. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't like, we prepared for it, but it wasn't like we didn't think it'd be that close.
What did you prepare for them specifically? We saw a lot of Sombra. We actually expected to see less of that. Were you surprised at the compositions that they ran over and over again at you?
The thing we most prepared for was like the Mauga, because like that's what we've had problem with in the past. Other than that, I think it was more like just play your own game and see what happens.
Chronic, yeah. I was gonna ask, you know, you guys are obviously gonna make it to playoffs now, start in the lower bracket. What do you guys think you need to work on and improve to make an impact once we get to the playoffs?
I think the biggest part is just like, we just need to play our own game. Like, once we stop worrying about these meta shifts and like just play what we're comfortable on, it'll be so much better, and we can actually show what we can do.
All right, then finally, I gotta ask about the Widowmaker there on Havana, because it looked pretty brutal. We were sitting on your perspective for quite some time there as you were just shooting people coming out of spawn. Was the Orisa Shield Widow something you had like game plan going into things? Because it looked pretty oppressive with Amplify not really being able to adapt.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sitting on the high ground and I just hear PK say, "Okay, Iconic, I can shield you. I can shield you," and then it's just OP.
It's OP. It
was.
Gonna make a Risa shield. Yeah, I love it. It was pretty
What
cool.
can you do when a Widow is just shielded off? Like, unkillable.
Actually, so true.
fast
Last
circle.
question before we're gonna let you go, Chronic. Now you're finding yourself in that 5th, 6th spot, which means that you're starting your playoffs run in the lower bracket. How do you feel about that as a team?
I think we've had a rough start, but I really do think, like, I believe in my team. I really do think we can come back really strong in playoffs and, like, just do well. I really believe.
Right, we're looking forward to that lower bracket Warlord run from your team. Thank you so much for joining us and best of luck in your next match.
Thank you so much.
And that was, of course, Chronic, who's also the player of the match for this particular one. Rightfully so. I mean, yeah, Chronic on Widow, kind of nasty, not gonna lie. They are, of course, not moving up much in our standings. Alas, it still feels good to, end the stage on such a high note.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think Chronic has been a standout as well, so I'm looking forward to see more from Chronic. I feel like Chronic has been really good on both the Sojourn and the Widowmaker. The kids are going to say I'm glazing him, but I just feel like Chronic is one of those Sojourns that can really take it to some of the North
You
America.
are the kids.
Yeah, you
Tony.
are.
You're literally
I'm
in
turning
your
30 this
20s.
year. I'm an unk at this point, Zoe. But I don't go around telling people that I'm glazing, but that's what the kids say. So,